Good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome. That's a very muted response, isn't it? It's London School of Economics, so the toffs are in, are they? Good evening. Good evening. That's more like it, that's much more like it. Look, we've got a fantastic evening tonight, but I want to set the scenes. Have you ever felt invisible in the organisation you've worked in? For whatever reason. You work hard, you come in, you give everything, you're committed, but perhaps you're not recognised. What we want to do tonight is have a conversation about how all our people would feel so much different if they felt they were part of something special, they felt that they belonged, and had someone to believe in. So we have the privilege of working with the Beverly Wilshire Hotel in LA. For 5 years on the trot, voted the best hotel in the world. The general manager, Ben Trott, is our client, and we've had a long-term relationship. And a little bit about the Beverly Wilshire. It's where they filmed Pretty Woman, of course. Of course. And Richard Gere, Julia Roberts, fabulous. But everything you saw in the film is quite true. It's exemplary service. Every week, Ben Trott has a managers' meeting. He invites the 3 doormen who run the 24-hour shift, 8 hours each. He invites them to his managers' meeting. They are not managers. Guess how they feel being invited to that weekly meeting? They're not just invited, they're item number 1. The very first item every week, Ben says, guys, how's it going? Why does he ask them? Collectively, they have 250 customer interactions every day. They have the pulse of the customer. Not only that, they're the first touch point of that business. They are the brand. Guess how they feel that they're invited to that meeting? And when he asks them, how are things going? Guess how they feel? Then if he listens to what they say, they feel seriously connected. If he acts on what they say, they feel trusted. He energizes them every week by inviting them. Who do you invite to your managers' meetings? Do you ever think about the people who might feel a little invisible? Who would just benefit from being part of that? These guys have something in common. They're all heads of state. Every one of them went from a positive populism to rather negative nativism. They're strongmen leaders. They're asking a really tough question: dynamic engagement or splendid isolation? Not many of them understand or have walked in the shoes of the millennials. But all is not lost. We have a bunch of national leaders who are very, very different, and of a completely different generation. And perhaps not aligned around ideology. They're not left or right. They're issue-based, they're event-driven. Our world is changing. But do you think these guys really understand modernity? Really understand a disruptive innovation? Really understand there's a generation there that feels different, behaves different, speaks different, thinks different? These might. Leo Varadkar is the Prime Minister of Ireland. He's of Indian origin. He's gay in one of the most conservative Catholic countries on the planet. We could choose Justin Trudeau. And Justin's got the great quote: "The world is going faster than it's ever gone before, but it will never be this slow again." We're challenging people. It's no longer about the best person for the job. It's the best person for the team. And when we start to think about the best person for the team, we think completely differently about the talent we're looking for. So, I'm doing a bit of work with Vodafone. Vodafone are struggling to get women at the top of the organisation. So they asked the leaders of the organisation, what are we doing wrong? The leaders said, it's the talent pipeline. We're just not getting enough women into our recruitment pipeline. So they focused on getting women into the recruitment pipeline. They get loads more in, but nothing changes. They're still struggling to get women at the top of the organisation. But who did they ask what the issue was? They asked the senior executives who happened to be men. They decided to do something really innovative and asked the women. And what did the women say? It's nothing to do with the pipeline. It's to do with a lack of career advancement. So what have they done now? Start to look for the talented women and promote them, and the game has changed completely. It's not always the received wisdom that's right. Walk into the shoes of those you want to be included. We've got a couple of my mentees a couple of our interns from my business are here today. And we try to choose the best for the business. And it means we've had different races, different faiths, different genders. And we were lucky enough earlier this year to have Priyanka. Priyanka came from Mumbai. She joined our team. She was the fourth of our interns. Sheikh was of Bangladeshi origin, Muslim. We had Adam, our Brit, from Nottingham, good old Protestant. We had Marcel, of Jamaican origin, evangelical. Priyanka joined them, first female, of Indian origin, Hindu. Very interesting. When she joined, it was the first time she was going to work outside of Mumbai. The guy said for the first day, let's all go to lunch, and a good way of introducing you to the team. They headed towards the burger bar. When they got there, Priyanka said, I'm a vegetarian. They said, there's a veggie cafe around the corner, why don't you wander over there? She wanders over, she sits down, but when she looks up, the boys had joined her. They were ribbing her. They all had a vegetarian lunch. They took the time to share with her what it was like to work in the team, introduced her into the culture of the team. She was now part of the team. And at first, shy, introverted, waited to be asked. By the end of the first week, we saw a little difference. I did my first mentoring session to see, what have you picked up? How's it gone? How's it going? How do I support you? And she told me this story. She came from a middle-class family in Mumbai. She said she got up at 8 o'clock in the morning, never before. And when she got up, her clothes were nicely ironed and laid out for her. Breakfast was beautifully set up. She'd have a quick shower, get changed, have breakfast. By 8:30, downstairs, there's a car waiting for her that drove her directly to her school. She knew nothing different. She was now staying with relatives in Ilford. It was slightly different. Just slightly different. She was up at 6:30 every morning, ironing her own clothes, making her own breakfast, wandering down to the tube station, pushing herself into the carriage with people of every race, faith, style you could imagine, and she loved it. 2 changed on the tube before a bit of a walk down to our office, and in she came in, and there's Sheikh, there's Adam, there's Marcel. All completely different. She'd never been in that sort of environment. At the end of 2 weeks, she went back to Mumbai. About 6 weeks ago, her parents came over with her for a quick trip. And we decided to meet. Well, they insisted on meeting. What have you done with our daughter? So we met, and they said, she has completely been transformed. She's full of life, she's pushy, she's extroverted, she has opinions, she wants to do things her way. We love it. What happened? I just explained about the vibrancy of cosmopolitan London. The opportunity to mix with people who you may not get an opportunity to mix with elsewhere. And what we found with Priyanka, at the start, She may not have been the best qualified person for the job, but I can tell you today, she was the best person for the team. So I'm going to play a little clip from Apple. Apple say diversity is what drives innovation at Apple.
Open. Open a door and it opens all the others. Open a mind and see what happens next. No great thing, no beautiful invention was created in a vacuum. It happens when we leave our comfort zone and come together. Embrace faiths, cultures, disabilities, differences. Embrace races, ages, ideologies, personalities, creating a tool or device nobody saw coming. Humanity is plural, not singular. The best way the world works is everybody in, nobody out. So who we're made of is everyone. Differences not just celebrated, but essential. Many more women in charge. Equal pay for equal work everywhere. A new generation of Apple, more diverse than the one that came before. Open is not just who we are, but what we believe as a company. Because humanity isn't singular, it's plural. The truth is, we don't see things the same. The power is, we don't see things the same.
And with that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce my two special panelists. Please give the warmest of welcomes. Helene Speight, Steph Wicken, come and join me on the stage, please. Okay. Please. Helene, why don't I start with you? What do you do?
So I am the HR Director of Formula E Motorsport, based here in London.
How long have you been doing that?
So Formula E set off, it was an idea of the CEO in 2014, and it's been going, it's now entering its 5th season, and it's gone from being a sport worth 0 to 700 million in 4 years.
What did you do before that?
Before I did that, I was Intercontinental Hotel Group, and I was the Global Talent Director in charge of diversity and inclusion.
Which we will return to.
Yes.
Steph, what do you do?
It's a very good question. No one really knows what I do. That's where I like to keep it. My job title is Business Support at Wilson & Partners, which is a mechanical and electrical engineering company. We're very small. We're only 10 people. So I do everything, basically.
How long have you been doing that?
For 4.5 years now. So I joined actually as a technician 4.5 years ago. Did that for 3 years while I was studying, and then decided that actually engineering wasn't really for me. So I put my hand up and became an administrator again, and in 2 years went from office junior to whatever I am now.
And what did you do before this?
I was an office junior. I was at school.
So you finished school.
Go
on.
I left school at 16, and I started just an internship as an office junior in my first construction company. And then I decided that I wanted to carry on studying, so I started my first degree when I was 16 and did the two together for a few years.
2 different degrees? No,
working in a degree to start with. And then I moved companies a couple of times, decided that I was 19 and therefore need to go and find myself, so I went travelling. Climbed a mountain, found myself, it was great, very cliche. And then I came back home and joined this company that I'm currently with as a technician, and then started another degree while I was still finishing the first degree, but didn't tell the 2 universities that I was at both at the same time. Yeah, it's very confusing.
But so now you're doing business support.
Yes.
Who do you report to?
Managing director.
Isn't that a little odd?
I've only actually ever worked for business owners or managing directors. I've never reported to a manager per se, which is unique, I guess.
And I want all the audience to notice the two voices, where they've come from, how the voices differ. And I wouldn't be bold enough to say of different generations. But
Careful. That's why he's put me on this side of the stage, so I can't reach him.
But let's say different backgrounds, the variety of backgrounds. And I suppose we're setting the premise today in that you saw my caricature of the strongman, of a particular vintage, and a new generation coming in. And every generation says that the generation coming after it is more difficult, more challenging to manage and relate to, but perhaps this is the biggest divide. And Steph has done something amazing in a short space of time. You've got responsibility reporting to the managing director. If you don't mind me asking, Steph, how old are you?
24.
So that's quite a young age to have that level of responsibility.
You're going to ask me now, aren't you?
Would I?
Don't worry, I'm 25 next week, so I'm getting ready for
It's
my
still a long way
quarter-life
off,
crisis.
but go on.
No, I was going to say that you're in a very young industry.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about the workforce in your industry and where does it come from and what do you look for?
Yeah, do you know what's been really nice for the first time, moving from a big corporate background with policies, procedures, huge workforce, was going to Formula E was the first time that there was a blank sheet of paper and the CEO said, build it as you want it. And it was the first time that I actually could put my passion for diversity into my team. So we are 121 now. We've got 22 different nationalities. The youngest employee is 19, the eldest is 62. It's an absolute melting pot of difference, and I think as a young woman, my mother was such an advocate for equality. She was so passionate about it that it's something that really resonates with me, and what a privilege it's been for me to actually make that reality. And I think, I was thinking on the way here, I get so frustrated with this emphasis on policy and procedure and these working groups. And don't get me wrong, some of them do work, but as a HR director, I get to pick who joins Formula E. So therefore, I've got 50% female. I've got 50% female.
Wow.
That's what I wanted to do. That's what I've gone for. And
why is that so important to you?
because it just, for me, the best teams are the ones that every kind of thought process, age group, background is represented. And Formula E being an international motorsport, I didn't want to build a British business. I wanted to build an international team that could take this sport around the world and appeal to people from different nationalities, different backgrounds, and be inclusive, truly inclusive as a sport. And this is the thing for me, is in some ways, I couldn't go back to the corporate lifestyle. I can play that role, I can wear that veneer, but actually, working in a startup or a small organisation is you build it as you want to. There's no excuses for me. If you believe in diversity, then do it.
Do you have that belief in diversity, in inclusion?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I look at my professional life, I don't have a huge amount of control over necessarily who we have employed. But if I look at my personal life, within my friendship group alone, I've got Turkish, South African, Finnish, Swedish, where else have we got? India. Just, I surround myself with people completely unconsciously of all sorts of different ethnicities, backgrounds. My friends are all 25 years older than me because they're a bit more interesting, to be honest.
Did you hear that?
It's all right, I'm a millennial, so it's all right.
And you went out of your way to have that social mix. Why?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't think I ever went out of my way per se. I met my first friend out of that group was the South African, and then he was all, diversity was so ingrained in himself and his group of friends that they all became my friends, and then their friends, which were all diverse, became my friends on top of that, and it just grew. It actually just, I can put it back to a single point and a moment in time where I was open to diversity, because I mean, I'm from a white middle class British family who's been in the UK since like 1066, so I'm very British, and you know, conservative background and all these kind of things. And actually it was coming and working in London, similar to with your intern, that opened my eyes to there's so much more out there. Why don't we know about this?
You've got yourself involved in different initiatives at your organisation. Share with us some of the initiatives that, perhaps the one that you're looking to build.
So this year I accidentally entered my company into a social mobility indexing thing, and we came 98th, so I'm going to take that we're top 100. There are 102 entrants, so it wasn't great, but it doesn't matter. And my company, we are 10 people, we are 8 white males and 2 white females. So to be honest, social mobility is not something we're great at. But the problem is I can't sack any of my 10 colleagues, because they're actually quite good at their job and very useful, but we don't have the business growth to be able to employ a lot of people from different backgrounds. So we're kind of, instead of looking inwards at the business, we're looking outwards. And what we're trying to do is partner with local schools and communities and bring our construction professional services to them, to their assemblies, so they can understand and hear about this whole different industry that they probably didn't know about. I mean, how many people know what a quantity surveyor does, for example? Whereas that is a job you can be earning a very good salary. It's absolutely critical to the construction process. So we're trying to do that and link other small businesses together. So we're engineers, we link with the QSs, we link with the project managers, we link with the marketing and the business development and the other, you know, support roles within the industry to create a workshop that students come along to for 6 weeks, and out the end of it they get some real practical experience and the opportunities to understand what other careers are out there.
Helene, comment on that. Comment on what you've just heard.
No, it's wonderful to do something different, and I was just sat here thinking about how I'm trying to even push myself in diversity in the business, and being in the business of sport, it tends to attract competitive, passionate sports people, and it's not difficult to talent attract. But I had an application the other day from a young gentleman outside of the UK who'd been in a horrendous accident, and he'd lost a limb. And we had a call, and he was such a wonderful, passionate young man. Didn't have a lot of experience, but I buy into that as well. I look at the person and what they bring and their passion and their commitment. And for me as a business leader is about how can I give him this opportunity? What changes do I need to make so he can have this opportunity at Formula E? And I think when you have control of a business, you absolutely need to keep thinking about that, because it shouldn't be an exclusive club. And
do you need to justify that commercially?
No, I'm very fortunate. I'm very fortunate that I think my CEO absolutely believes in the right person for the team, and certainly has no barrier on age. And if we look at how we've structured our organisation in terms of reward and promotions, we have some really young people with some huge responsibilities because they were the best person to lead that team. Do they need extra support at times? Maybe. Sometimes they're actually a bit more mentally prepared. They're not as worn out for a start off. But I'm very lucky, and I think the challenge should be back to the CEO, because as the leader of the business, he or she sets the tone for that organisation. So for me, there's no excuses. If he says he buys into diversity, then there you go. It's over then to HR, COO, whoever's involved to drive that. And in its most basic, make sure you do have balanced, applications. Different ages, different backgrounds, different genders, nationalities. Something Formula E absolutely wanted, and you hear this in employer brand, is about a business where you can be yourself. And I was thinking, I've been working since 1992, and it's the first time I can go to work and actually be Helene Speight from the minute I walk through the door. There's no veneer, and that includes swearing, unfortunately, which I'm really going to try not to do tonight.
But you have to deliver.
Without question. I mean, the thing is, being in a sport, you know, it's highly competitive. It's still a small organisation, and there's no place to hide. Often you're in a position where you are the only person responsible for that role. So if you don't deliver, you're letting the whole team, the whole ecosystem down. And, you know, I don't have any problem with absence. Any problem with absence. I don't have any problem with that at all. Why is that? Because it's a great place to work. It is a family. People want to be there. So I don't have that issue at all.
You must have worked very hard to create that sense of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
What are the building blocks of building that sense of belonging?
I think something we talked about ourselves earlier is that piece about trust and the importance of that. And, you know, for me, the business, I'm lucky in that sense that the business is small enough still to have those personal relationships with people. And even asking their opinion, you know, how should we be doing things? What needs to be improved? Give it to me. Tell me exactly what you think. Don't hold back. And having that dialogue without, you know, this whole let's have a managers meeting and let's discuss it. For me, that's absolute bullshit. You know, in the moment, I did it. There you go.
You were doing so well.
I know, I'm sorry guys. For me, feedback is in the moment. You know, it's written on people's faces. You can see it, and you know, when we travel as a team, you know, within the event space, I get a lot of my data points watching people at work, at play. And I don't need to speak to the line manager. I'm speaking to the person. There is, of course, a structure, you know, responsibility, but for me, everybody has a voice, and I don't care whether it's the intern or the director. For me, it's equal, it's valid, I want to hear it. And as a business, that's why we appeal to young people. You know, why do we appeal to young people? Because young people are running the social channels. They're not in their 40s, 50s. The young people are running that, they're leading that. And I think that it's so important.
Steph, you said quite emphatically that you come from a rock-solid, middle-class British background, but you're leading an initiative on social mobility. Why?
Why not? I mean, it's interesting.
I'm asking the questions here, Steph.
Sorry, I've got so used to asking questions, I don't know how to answer them anymore. But it's interesting what you said before with the kind of the trust aspect and everyone's voice is equal. Mm-hmm. I've gone through my life probably quite naively, being completely oblivious to any kind of hierarchical thing, or, you know, the fact that I should respect this person because they're older than me or because they've been doing it longer. I mean, I judge everyone's ability based on their performance. How are they as a person? Are they a good human being? And, you know, can you do what you say you can do? And if you can, fantastic. If you can't, why not? Right, let's fix it. And that kind of general attitude, I don't hold judgment. So it took me 17 years to notice that my cousin's actually mixed race. He's half Angolan. It just never even crossed my mind as a concept. So I guess I'm not sure where that's come from, but just.
But it's part of you. It's part of your character.
Blissful naiveness. It's great.
And positive naiveness.
Yes, exactly.
So social mobility. Tell us a little bit more about what are you trying to achieve? How will you know when you've got there?
I think the difficulty of being a small business is we can have quite a strong impact on an individual. They come and they spend a week with us or 6 weeks with us and a year with us, and we can really see the development in that one person. But we want to reach more than one person at a time, which is why we're trying to step out into the schools and open the forum and create a larger group. In terms of how do we know when we've achieved that goal, I couldn't say. I'd have to set a goal first. At the moment, we just want to do what we're doing. You know, we measure. We have like small little milestones, and one of the big ones for us is when we do employ some more people is actually making sure that there is the diversity in it. And that's not just in terms of, oh, I need to employ someone from a minority or from this or from that. It's not positively discriminating as well as negatively discriminating.
I listen to the both of you, and you make diversity and inclusion sound so natural, so healthy, so prevalent. but it isn't. It's not the norm. Why?
It's a very good question. And honestly, even my own experience, and similarly to you actually, I don't know if, even if Renee knows this, I left school at 16. So my climb to where I got to was certainly not easy. And obviously we're going back to the 1990s, so it's a little bit different. And that whole piece about being a young person, so therefore you can't have that responsibility, or even the gender piece. I was very fortunate to have the support of my mother, who basically says, you know, stand up for who you are, show them how good you are, and push through. And I think having that support mechanism, sadly not everybody has those role models in life. A lot of people don't have that, and you know, a lot of people lack confidence to push through, and it's very easy to beat people down. And I think unfortunately a lot of the people that set the agendas are old-fashioned in the way that they think, and the old boys club still exists. And if you look at the colour of people on boards, many of them are white, and it's not changing quick enough, and it needs people. You know, Lord Davies' report of 2011 talks about gender balance on boards, and to be honest, that it just winds me up. Does it really require legislation? Does it really require all these metrics reporting in your annual report? Hold the CEO accountable. Let's have a look at who's on your board. Are people from different faiths represented? Are people from different backgrounds represented? No excuses. And for me, it's not changed quick enough.
I find actually probably one of the biggest challenges, particularly in construction, is it's a very male-dominated industry, and actually in terms of the management design side, quite a lot of white males, British, sort of not particularly diverse. And part of that problem is it's a very complicated thing to talk about, and actually talking about it to someone with an accent or who doesn't understand the nuances of the vocabulary makes it even more complicated. I think that's a real issue, just generally. But in terms of actually kind of doing something proactive to manage or to deal with it, you can't manage diversity. It's impossible. It's too complicated. There's so many little, interactions. You've got to influence it. You've got to go out and you've got to be seen. You've got to be seen to speak to people, because if you plant an idea in someone's mind, they'll pass that idea on to someone else, and on and on and on. And that's how you grow it. You can't say we need to have X number of people or 20% or whatever of this and that. It doesn't work. But if you make other people believe, then they'll carry the passion for you. So actually, it can become ingrained in a culture.
When you look above you, Steph, you work in a very male-dominated industry, as you say. You look above you and it's all male. How does that make you feel about your advancement, your career progression?
There are definitely times, less so in my business, because the company itself is very good at not biasing age or gender or anything like that. But within the industry, if I go to a networking event and there are 50 men in the room who are in their 40s upwards, all directors, and then I walk in at a 20-something-year-old girl, they go, "Oh, you must just be the BD girl. Oh, you're the BD lady. Oh, that's not a real job, is it?" And actually, to gain the respect of a cohort...
How does that make you feel?
Just irritated, because I quite enjoy the challenge. Because there's nothing more thrilling than meeting someone who you can see has looked at you and gone, "Oh, God, here we go again." And then you actually have a conversation, you turn them, and then by the end, they want to meet you and they want to speak to you and they want to be involved in what you're doing.
Very good. So let's set the agenda for the pod. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and I'll take some questions from the audience. But let's set the agenda. Let's take your minds out 5 years out. Diversity, inclusion, belonging, it's got traction. Our world is starting to change. What are the benefits you would like to see happen if things go really well? How will we have changed the world positively if it goes really well?
It's like an exam question,
No,
isn't
is
it?
it? You just put us on the spot, don't you?
Yes, go on.
I mean, for me, honestly, and it sounds, however it sounds to you, and I hope I've got authenticity when I say this, it makes the best teams. I mean, does it make it simple, straightforward, smooth, harmonious? Absolutely not. I mean, We fight, we argue. Sometimes people are confused at how people are coming at different challenges, and I see the nationalities often at play the most. But we have built such an innovative, disruptive sport when nobody believed it would happen, and I absolutely buy into the fact we did that through building a diverse team. And I think selling our story almost about that and championing it and celebrating it publicly, how did you do it? We built a diverse team. We celebrated difference. We truly celebrated it.
And
that's how we did it.
And there was a point of difference there to Formula One. Formula One, which is second most watched sport in the world, TV watched sport in the world, you came from nowhere. Was part of your strategy to be different, to be diverse?
Our strategy was to be disruptive. We like to be naughty. We like to be, and that's been with me for many years. How I ended up in HR, I'll never know. But definitely different, disruptive, innovative, creative, risk-taking. And it's okay to not get it right. I think that's the other thing is, because we know we can bounce back, and I think we've been fearless in our pursuit. And all of us are on the same page. And that comes from the leader at the end of the day. If it's breathed into the organisation, forget any other bias, we're going to do this as a team, you're going to do it.
So at some stage of the game, the leader needed an HR director. What do they see in you for such a new, different challenger brand that was going to do things? Why you?
I bet he asks himself that question sometimes. We have such an interesting relationship because we debate, we fight, and I think something we both share is we're very outspoken about how we feel, what we want to do, and I think he gave me that blank sheet of paper, so I was very fortunate. That was a privileged position to be in, but he allows me that space to be passionate about the things that I'm passionate about. Employee engagement, having employee awards, doing things as a team, making sure that everybody is looked after. And I think he saw that in me. I think he saw I wasn't conventional. He also knew I've worked internationally. So I've lived in India, I've lived in Russia, I spent 18 months in Romania, and that's brave, to take yourself, no family and friends, into a different country, and I was a lot younger then. But it also teaches you about respecting difference and actually being the minority yourself.
Very good.
And I think he enjoyed that. He celebrated that as an individual, and he doesn't like people that just say yes. Because if you're a yes person, are you really going to get the best result? You push and pull each other, and eventually you're going to get there. And you've got to be up for that fight. And I've got big balls.
It's all right, I think you said that one.
Yeah.
No doubt, no doubt. Right. Steph, 5 years out.
I think I'd just like to feel represented, and that everyone else should feel represented, whether it's at work, whether it's in politics, whether it's within their family, their community, whatever is important to you. Because I'm sat at the last election, and I went, the blinking hell do I vote for? I don't believe in any of that anymore. And actually, I think there's a lot of young people who feel like that. The people in charge aren't listening, or they aren't engaging in a way that means that everyone feels heard.
I think we're setting up a really good second half here. Now, I would like to say, because we've got we're streaming this live online. All of those who have registered online and would like to throw some questions at us, go to our website and on the chat box, send your questions in. My team will pick them up and we'll have your questions there. And because of the time zone, we've got a few events, one in Accra, Ghana, one in Gaborone, Botswana, and one in Johannesburg, South Africa. So hello to all of you online. But please join me in giving a fantastic round of applause to both Steph and to Helene. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, please join us. We've got 30 minutes. Refreshments are served outside. You can get up close and personal with our two panellists, and I'll see you back here in 30 minutes. Thank you very much indeed. And come back with your telling, sharp, short questions, please. Sure.